Following up on that and one other issue as well, uh, social media uh, is just filled with desperate appeals from girls, from women. Taliban going door to door, ripping girls out of their mothers' arms. Women who have been told for 20 years they should get schooling, learn to code, learn to teach, become engineers, become doctors, become lawyers. It's simply heartbreaking. And the question remains, there are Democrats as well as Republicans on the Hill, including veterans of the Afghan War and Iraq wars, saying that there should have been arrangements made months ago, that before the withdrawal was signaled by the date in April, that for months we should have been moving people out. We should have been moving on the evacuation, not only of the special visas, but of other people as well, and that this chaotic vision of people, thousands of people at the airport, climbing onto C-17s as they are rolling down the tarmac, was completely avoidable, given the withdrawal. Secondly, let me ask you about a question regarding the president's speech. He said that we can accomplish the mission we accomplished 10 years ago of not only getting, bin Laden, but preventing Afghanistan from becoming a haven for terrorists against the homeland. The original mission of 20 years ago, that we can accomplish this from over the horizon. Intelligence experts, including former Obama DCI, say that's just not true. That once the withdrawal was completed and Bagram dismantled and turned over and now taken over by the Taliban, we don't have eyes on the ground. That we cannot fight terror from over the horizon in a place like Afghanistan, as we perhaps do in other countries. If you could address both of those.
Let me take those questions in turn. Let me start with your first question. The images that we've all seen emanating from the international airport in Kabul, HKIA, they are searing, they are painful, they are difficult to see, they are difficult to watch. And I say that on a couple different levels. One, the most basic level, we are all human. We share a common humanity with these Afghans whose desperation, whose fear, whose concern is they wear it on their faces. And so on that level, it is deeply moving to all of us. There's another level, though, that I think is especially relevant to this building. I'm a relative newcomer here. I have spent 7 months here. There are people in this building, hundreds if not more, who have dedicated years and years of their lives to affecting a better life for the people of Afghanistan, including the women and girls. We have foreign service officers who have served multiple tours in Kabul in the 2 decades that the United States has been there. We have many more who have served in functions back here to support that mission. There are, and this I can speak personally to, there is a generation of public servants in this country who entered public service in the weeks, months, couple years after the 9/11 attacks. In my case, I was a freshman in college, and I knew on that day as I climbed to the roof of a dorm here in Washington and watched the smoke rise from the Pentagon that I wanted to pursue public service. So many of my colleagues have a similar story. It unites us. It unites many of us as public servants. So it's also painful on that level. Right now, what we are doing is a couple things. We are working around the clock in the first instance to maintain, to regain positive control over the airport compound. This is something that our colleagues at the Department of Defense have been working urgently to reestablish for a couple reasons. One, to be able to resume U.S. Military flights, and my colleague John Kirby will be briefing shortly, and he'll be able to give you an update on that. But importantly, this is also a civilian airport. We are seeking to reestablish positive control in order so that commercial travel can also resume, so that many of these Afghans whose images we have seen, whose images have been so searing, will be able to reach safety. In many cases, that will be with a helping hand from the United States government. We have spoken to our efforts on behalf of SIVs, so-called special immigrant visa applicants. You ask why we haven't done more. Let me just offer a bit of context. Through the course of this program, the United States has resettled, brought to their new lives, more than 75,000 Afghans who have, in various ways, assisted the United States government over the years. The Special Immigrant Visa Program provides, well, as it was initially conceived and legislated by Congress, it provides a visa to the United States. When this administration recognized that the security situation was becoming, was quickly evolving, many weeks ago, we launched Operation Allies Refuge. This was something that was never envisioned in any SIV program, including the one we had in Afghanistan or the one we had in Iraq. That is to say, a gargantuan U.S. effort not only to process, adjudicate, and to grant visas to these so-called special immigrants, but to actually bring them to the United States with a massive airlift operation. It's been through that operation that 2,000 Afghans have been able to reach the United States. Most of those Afghans have now been able to start their new lives through resettlement agencies. It was a month or so ago, we recognized that the need could be even greater for Afghans who were vulnerable, who may be at risk. That is precisely why we initiated a so-called Priority 2, P2, refugee status program that went beyond the statutory definitions of who could apply for and be eligible for the SIV program to include those brave Afghans who not only have helped the U.S. government over the years, but have helped the American people. We know that there are other vulnerable Afghans, some for the work they have done, some for the things they have said, some for nothing more than their gender. And we are also working and planning to bring as many as we can to safety. Right now, we are, again, in the process of reestablishing control over the airport. The military has been able to surge resources and will surge additional resources to the theater to allow us to bring on a large scale a number of these Afghans who will be able to start new lives in the United States, or who will be able to reach safety elsewhere in the world. We are committed to that. We have been flexible. We have been ambitious in our effort to do just that. You ask a second question about counterterrorism and what this means for our ability to detect and to thwart terrorist plotting. A couple points on that. Number one, the United States has built up the capacity to detect, disrupt terrorist plotting, terrorist networks in ways that were, in some cases, unimaginable prior to 9/11. That is to say, our tactics are effective, they are proven, and they go well beyond what this government would have been and was able to do prior to 9/11. We also recognize that the center of gravity of the threat we face from terrorist groups, whether it's Al-Qaeda, whether it's an Al-Qaeda affiliate, whether it's ISIS, whether it's an ISIS affiliate, it has shifted over the years. Of course, the center of gravity, the locus of activity, was in Afghanistan on September 11th, 2001. It hasn't been there in years. It hasn't been there in years precisely because we have been able to employ these effective tactics over the course of the past 20 years to do precisely what our forces went into Afghanistan to do in the first place. That is to decimate the network that launched, that conceived of, directed and launched the 9/11 attacks, and ensure that they can't regroup on Afghan soil. We are confident. But more importantly, the military and our intelligence community leaders have spoken and even testified to the fact that we will have capabilities in the theater, so-called over-the-horizon capabilities, that will allow us to use the technologies, to use the tactics that we have deployed and improved upon over the past 20 years to detect and to disrupt any terrorist plotting that may seek to reach our shores. We've also been very clear with the Taliban, and I said it just a moment ago, that the willingness of a future government of Afghanistan to allow any terrorist group to operate on its soil and to pose a threat to the United States, it's unacceptable to us, and we will demonstrate that using the fierce power of the U.S. military.